Today I'm going to be talking about how we can solve any multi-step equation. First, I'm just going to talk about the general steps that we want to follow anytime we're given a multi-step equation. You won't always need to use all these steps, but this will work for any equation that you're given. The first step is just to get rid of any grouping symbols, so any parentheses or brackets, and we would do this by distributing. The second step is to combine any like terms. So after you distribute, you may need to simplify one of the sides a little bit before we continue. The third step is to just get all your variable terms on one side, just so that there's only one variable term that we have to work with. The fourth step is to then get all the constant terms on the other side. So you put your variable terms on one side and then your constant terms on the other side. The last step is to get the variable completely by itself. If necessary, you won't always have to do this, but if it has a coefficient, you will have to get rid of that coefficient as well. So let's try and apply these steps to this first example. The first step is to get rid of any grouping symbols, and you will notice we have parentheses on both sides of the equation. So we can go ahead and start to get rid of those. And as I said before, we want to distribute. So we want to distribute the 2 to both terms inside of the parentheses on the left-hand side. And then on the right-hand side, we actually want to distribute a negative 12 since there's a minus sign in front of the 12. So we have negative 12 times x. And negative 12, this is a negative 1 because, again, we have that minus sign in front of it. So negative 12 times negative 1 gives us a positive 12. So we've completed the first step by getting rid of all of the grouping symbols. The next is just to combine any like terms. The left-hand side, we don't have any like terms, so it's just going to stay as it is. But on the right-hand side, I see we have a 4x and a minus 12x. So we can go ahead and combine those two together. Everything else will stay the same. That'll get us a negative 8x, and the 12 will just carry down. Now we've combined all our like terms, so we can go ahead and get all of our variable terms on one side. Really, whichever side you're comfortable with. If you want to move the negative 8x over to the left-hand side, you can do that. But you can also move the 8x over to the right-hand side. It really is just however you want to do that. Both ways will work. So I'm actually going to move the negative 8x over, so I'm going to add 8x to both sides to get rid of the negative 8x on the right-hand side. This will get us 16x plus 4 equals, again, these will cancel out because that's kind of the goal. We want to get rid of the variable on the right-hand side. We'll leave a 12 on the right-hand side. So now we have one variable term. It's on one side. We have completed step number 3. So we can move on to step number 4. Get all your constant terms on the opposite side of your variable terms. So the variable term is on the left-hand side, which means we want to move this plus 4 to the right-hand side. And to do that, we want to subtract 4 from both sides. So we have 16x equals positive 8. And so step number 4 is complete. We have our variable term on one side and we have our constant term on the other side. The last step is just to get the variable by itself. In this case, we still have to do that because we have a 16 in front of the x. And to get rid of that, we divide both sides by 16. And we will get x equals 1/2 if we simplify that fraction all the way down. I do suggest a lot of times to just leave your answers as fractions because that will be the most exact answer. So now that the variable is by itself, we have completed solving the equation and we got x is equal to 1/2. All right, for this next example, we're going to just do the same thing, follow those 5 steps. The first one being getting rid of any grouping symbols. And again, we have those parentheses on both sides. So we want to go ahead and distribute both of those. And distribute the 2. And again, we want to remember this is a negative 8 because there's that minus sign in front of it. So we have 2 times negative 8 getting us negative 16. All right, now we got rid of all of our parentheses there, so we want to combine all of our like terms. We only have 2 like terms on the left-hand side, our 20y and our negative 1y, or just negative y, or minus y, however you want to say that. We have 20 minus y, that's going to get us 19y. And you can either write this plus 20 in front of the 19 or on the right hand side of the 19y. It doesn't really matter. And then we have 16y minus 16 on the right hand side. We couldn't simplify that anymore. All right, now that we have combined all of our like terms, we want to get all our variable terms on the same side. Again, if you want to get all your variable terms on the right hand side, go ahead and do that. You'll still get the same answer, but I'm going to make sure all my variable terms are on the left hand side, which means I have to subtract a 16y from both sides to get rid of that term on the right hand side. When I do that, I will be left with 20 plus 3y equals negative 16. And now that I got all the variable terms on one side, I want to move my constant terms to the other side, which means I have to move this 20 to the right hand side. So I want to subtract a 20 away from both sides. And when I do that, I will get negative 36 on that right hand side. And that is completely separating the variable terms and the constant terms. The last step is just getting the variable by itself, which we do still need to do. So we need to divide both sides by 3, and y will be equal to negative 12. And since the variable is by itself, we have completed solving the equation. So again, to sum up the steps that we want to use if we're ever given a multi-step equation, you want to get rid of any grouping symbols. Again, if you're given an example that doesn't have any grouping symbols in it, you can just skip this step. You won't always use every step. Then you can go ahead and combine any like terms, separate your variable terms and your constant terms so you get all your variable terms on one side and all your constant terms on the other side, and then you go ahead and finish getting the variable term by itself. And that's how you solve a multi-step equation.